Hi, this is John Ondo from Marketing, Media, and Cupcakes. And before we get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. We're back after being gone for over 4.5 years. And I hope you get a chance to listen to episode 77, where we explain why we were gone for so long and that we're back for at least 3 more episodes. Angel and I are big supporters of entrepreneurship, and we love small businesses and faith-based businesses. And we just want to encourage you through our podcast each week. What's going to determine if we continue with more episodes will be the response. Subscribe to us on your platform. Send us an email at john@ondomedia.com. That would help us know you're listening and you want more episodes. So thank you so much, and let's get into today's episode.
This is the small business podcast that is sweeter than all the rest. Marketing, Media, and Cupcakes.
Welcome to episode 77 of Marketing, Media, and Cupcakes. Hello, my name is John Ondo. Along with me is my beautiful wife, Angel.
Hi there.
She's having a lovely cup of coffee. And then, sweetie, it's a pumpkin thing?
It's a pumpkin spice Green Mountain. It's delicious with a little Chobani cinnamon coffee cake creamer.
It is fall, and it is our second show back since the hiatus of 4 years and 7 months. And today we are going to get back into what we love, marketing and media. I don't know if we've got a lot of cupcake going on today's episode.
Well, we'll figure it out.
But the reason the show is called that is I am a filmmaker, media consultant, and I do marketing with a lot of the nonprofits I work with. Angel works for a Fortune 500 company in the customer service area. I know she looks at me funny when I say that because she does a lot more than that. But on top of all that, she has a side hustle of a cupcake business that we run out of our home here.
Yes, we do. And if you're looking for pumpkin cupcakes, just let me know. 'Tis the season. AngelsCustomCupcakes.com.
Being small businesses, my business is a small business, Ondo Media. Her cupcake business is a small business. We deal with marketing and trying to struggle like so many businesses do, whether they're big or small, with making sound choices, making decisions that will propel your business into the next millennium of success and so forth. One of the biggest reasons I wanted us to get the podcast back up. And even though it's been a month since this happened, I couldn't take my eyes off of this disaster.
You didn't. You saw smoke. You looked at the logo. He was, okay, I can see why.
Let's talk about Cracker Barrel.
That's why we're here.
Let's put our cards out on the table first of all.
John loves Cracker Barrel.
I love Cracker Barrel. I will pick a Cracker Barrel any day over anything else, especially a Bob Evans, hands down.
100%.
So we are Cracker Barrel fans. The chicken and dumplings, it's all I ever order.
He doesn't get anything else.
I get nothing else.
Promise.
It makes me happy right now thinking about it. That is Cracker Barrel, and I've only had 1 or 2 bad experiences at a Cracker Barrel, and it was service-oriented. It wasn't necessarily the food or the gift shop or anything like that.
Why do you think they did this?
Couple different things. As my dear radio mentor Bob Connors would say, and actually he didn't say this, I think it came from that Tom Cruise movie, follow the money.
Oh, yes, it did.
You got to follow the money. If you recall some of Cracker Barrel's history, Cracker Barrel had added alcohol to their menu not that long ago, and a lot of people lost their minds over that. Because it's a family restaurant, they didn't want to have drunken people running around in the gift shop buying Kenny Rogers records. It was a family, wholesome restaurant, and we're putting beer in there now. So you could tell right away they're trying to widen the audience. So a Cracker Barrel's market share is around 2 to 3%. That's pretty small. If you look at your big restaurants, it is the big gun, which is where my daughter currently works, Texas Roadhouse. #1 restaurant in, I believe, America right now. They overtook the Darden brands, which is your Olive Garden. I'm trying to remember if Longhorn is Darden.
I think it is.
Longhorn's a Darden. Those restaurants are top end. Red Lobster, I don't think is part of Darden anymore. I don't believe so. I think they spun them off. So about 3 or 4 more down from there is Cracker Barrel.
So they're in the top 10.
They're in the top 10. They're not making that much money compared to everybody else. This is the first thing we'll get into with this whole social media thing. So a lot of people on social media, and we're going to get into this next week because we're going to talk about social media and AI and things that just really make me want to pull what's left of my hair out. Kept referring to the new CEO. She was not a new CEO. She's been there for 2 or 3 years. This plan has been a plan of hers to pull Cracker Barrel out of its dive to do better with its marketing because they're not growing. They've had a 16% drop in diners, according to the New York Post. They had a turnaround plan that they were putting together. They said in focus groups they had a noticed loss of relevance at their customer base. The older group is unfortunately dying off. The younger crowd is not coming to Cracker Barrel. We have family members who will never step foot into a Cracker Barrel. They will go to every Farmhouse Fresh little coffee shop, what's that stuff that Chip and Joanna use, shiplap? Every shiplap diner, coffee shop, they will go into those, but they will not go into Cracker Barrel because a lot of people say, too dark, too rusty with the old stuff. And this was the feedback they were getting. Cracker Barrel, in an attempt to fix their brand, was let's make it a little bit brighter. Let's change some things. Let's just keep the nostalgia, but just change a couple of things. Here's what they tried to do. They kept the font, Cracker Barrel, but they dropped off the Uncle Ben or whoever he was and the barrel off of it. It was a cleaner, simpler logo. Here's what I look at when I look at logos. Is it going to be easily read on X, on Facebook, on social media? If you've got a logo that when you shrink it down to a square, it doesn't fit right or it doesn't read well, that's a problem in today's world. We live in a social media world. So to me, Cracker Barrel was updating their logo to fit the social media profiles better to attract the younger audience. What they were doing made total sense to me.
Yeah, I was not a fan of the new logo. I didn't understand the
Why not?
reason. It was plain.
Okay.
I didn't care for the font. There was no edge on the outside.
I would have liked to seen an edge on
I was
that,
like,
yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
To me, of all things to change, there were so many other things you could have gone after. Why that?
The other thing that everybody misses that I want to bring up is that you had the Cracker Barrel, the guy in the barrel, and then below it said Old Country Store.
Yes.
Now, this is something that's very important to me, and I hope Cracker Barrel does not bring this back, is the Old Country Store. Now, let me explain why. We live in Columbus, Ohio, which is the home of the Ohio State Buckeyes. I always have to say that. It's also home of a lot of food places, including Wendy's. Dave Thomas founded Wendy's here in 1969. It's an icon. And so I had the privilege for a while of going to church with one of the big marketing guys from Wendy's when they were doing the brand change. If you remember, they had an old-fashioned logo with the blue and the red, and it was a little bit more of an older font from the 20s. And Wendy was on there, and it was an older Wendy.
Yeah, because it was an old-fashioned hamburger.
Exactly. That was their tagline, old-fashioned hamburger. And I asked him, I said, why did you guys change that? Why did you guys ditch this? And he said, we did a lot of studies, and these guys do their research. And this is why Wendy's is still running at the top of the line for fast food. They did their homework, and they discovered the younger generations does not equate the word old with quality.
No.
Old-fashioned hamburger to a person who's a little older, old-fashioned, that means it's built better, it's better tasting, it's higher quality. Young people, they see old, they think it's rotten and decrepit, and we don't want anything to do with it. So they realize, if you notice, the change went from old-fashioned hamburgers to qualities all over their building. Quality. It's saying the same thing, but in a way that younger generation can go, it's quality.
They can identify with
Not old country store needs to go on Cracker Barrel because just by definition, it's old. It's an old country store. Cracker Barrel has to make some changes or it will be out of business at some point in the next decade or so because the younger generation, they don't communicate this way. It could be country store. It could be quality country store. It could be a really good country store, but old, not a word you want to use in today's vernacular. So that's a good example of Wendy's, who did something really well and switched their brand from old-fashioned hamburgers and old-fashioned malts to quality, and there was no problem. They pulled that off, and their market share is great. Cracker Barrel made some mistakes, and that's why we're still talking about them a month later after this disaster. Somebody might say, this is like the old Coke, new Coke. There is no such thing as bad press. No, this was bad press. This was disastrous.
Yeah, I don't believe any of this was their intention. I think they had all good intentions to try to bring in a younger audience and anybody who has a cell phone to say, what are you doing to my thing, my thing that I've come to, that I know I can get my fried apples or my chicken and dumplings, and now you're messing with it. And why do I want all these millennials in my store? What should we be doing first before you even consider rebranding?
Great question. The first and most important thing in your rebrand is you need to know your existing audience. Marketing firms were brought in, geniuses who are supposed to know this stuff. This is going to sound as conspiracy theory as I get. Every time she goes to the doctor and she comes back and says, the doctor's referred me to another doctor, and that doctor, it's all, and I say, it's all a scam. It's all a pyramid scheme. They're all just dipping money into the insurance. This is all they're doing. And I think some of you are going, yep, John, preach it. But here's the thing. These marketing companies make money off of making changes. If you go to a marketing company and say, give me a focus group, go do some research on what we should change, and you come back and say, you know what, it looks fine. They're not making any money. They have to come back and say, hey, we've come up with 3 new logos that we're going to charge you $250,000 for design concepts for, and we've done these focus groups, and we've done this, and you got to change all these things, and we've hired. That's where they make their money, because nobody makes money by saying, you know what, we looked at it, you're doing fine. So that's the first thing you have to understand, and I'll say that to small business people. I try very hard when people come to me and say, John, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I always tell them, you can keep going on this course, but this is the pros and cons you're missing out on. The course you're choosing may alienate younger people for whatever reason, or it may alienate older people. But for the most part, if your target is this group, if you're hitting it, then you're doing a good job. The old saying that we say all the time in television and marketing, when you try to reach everyone, you'll end up reaching no one.
Exactly.
And I think you could almost put this down as the epitaph of Cracker Barrel. They had a niche audience that was okay. It was dwindling, but they decided we're going to try to reach everyone and try to be like an Olive Garden, be like a Longhorn, be like Texas Roadhouse, and we're going to widen it out. But I think their thought process was, if we just add some alcohol, if we just brighten the place up a little bit, if we just change the logo slightly, this will work. And it backfired, because the number one point here in the notes that you'll see downloaded below, know your audience before you change. And I don't think they understood how passionate the Cracker Barrel audience was. Furthermore, they didn't anticipate their audience would take to social media to vent their anger. Social media blew up because if you get accused of being woke, if you get accused of being a liberal or a conservative or a Trump person or a Biden person, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. And this is a new phenomenon. If you don't know your audience and realize that, oh, you know what, we're just changing one little thing. You took the guy off there. You didn't think about the fact that might impact the fact that most of your restaurants are in rural areas, more conservative areas, with people who, quite honestly, will immediately take it as a political.
100%.
Everybody takes everything as a political jab now. And then the poor CEO, Julie, she doesn't look like the type of person who's ever eaten a Cracker Barrel in life.
Not even remotely.
She maybe loves Cracker Barrel. She may be the most wonderful person in the world. But when they put her out in front of the networks, she looked like she worked at Apple, and They didn't know their audience. And their idea of, oh, we'll parade out our CEO who seems more progressive and more modern, you ended up as a net loss. You didn't gain the people you wanted to gain, and you completely ticked off the people who love you, and they're gone. I've been consulting nonprofits who I've sat back and said, hey, we need to pivot. The economy's doing this. We need to pivot. And they're like, oh, no, we know our audience. They're going to be with us. They're not going to have any problems. And they didn't know their audience. And the audience completely dropped them because of something that was said. A simple little reaction was communicated wrong. So you got to know your audience before you make a rebrand, before you change. I believe the marketing companies that focus grouped this, if they focus grouped it, they totally missed the mark on this, because this would have come up. This blatant of a thing, they should have known. Know your audience before you change anything like that. The next point when you rebrand, communicate the why. Now, they did do this. They explained we did surveys. People wanted the Cracker Barrels to be lightened up, but the fact that they made a big deal out of it. Oh, we're making these changes. But what they did is they took everything a little too far. The third thing you need to do in a rebrand is understand every company has to evolve. Pepsi's changed their logo a dozen times. Coke has changed their logos dozens of times. BMW has changed their logo. GM just recently changed its logo. Nobody lost their minds on that. You do have to evolve without alienating.
So if I were to come to you, John, and say, should I rebrand? What are some reasons why I would even want to consider that as a small business?
Great question. Here's the reasons why you want to look at rebranding your business. One, your brand no longer reflects who you are. Now, again, this was what Cracker Barrel was trying to do. They wanted to rebrand so they could reach a new audience, and it didn't work. A lot of people say, we got to reach a new audience, so we need to change everything. No. Angel and I now drive a 1991 Corvette. It's a 35-year-old car, but the kids all look at our Corvette and say, we love that Corvette. They love our 91 Corvette. So I always preface this in today's culture. Don't think everything that's old is not cool. Kids love retro. Kids love older things. Kids wear Converse shoes that are the same Converse shoes that we wore when we were kids. So you have to have a little bit of information about this. If you need to reach a younger audience, but like we mentioned earlier, old-fashioned isn't communicating to them. But just because it's old, just because it looks like a 30-year-old logo, actually may be in your advantage. The next reason you should rebrand is your reputation needs a reset. If for some reason you have had a brand that perhaps your CEO was hugging an employee at a Coldplay concert, you might need a rebrand. That's a good example. You need to reset because your reputation's been busted. So that's an example. And then the last one, and this again was a Cracker Barrel mistake, you've outgrown your own look. Sometimes brand you've had for too many years, and you need a professional rebrand. But again, I caution you, don't do it because you think we need to be hip and cool. Cracker Barrel went with the hip and cool, and it backfired. Retro still works for some instances. You've got to have your research. You've got to have focus groups. You can't just ask your buddy across the street, you like this logo better? You've got to run focus groups, and not just focus groups in one market, in urban areas, in suburban areas, in the South, in the North. And Columbus, Ohio, again, where we are, is one of the great test markets of the world because we not only are in Ohio, which is good old middle America, we have got an incredible diverse population, not just black and white, Hispanic, Somalian. We have got a little bit of everything right here. So a lot of companies love the test market here because you can get a good grasp of a lot of different demographics in this one place. So you really have to do your homework on that. And I don't believe Cracker Barrel did that. They thought I think their main goal was let's widen the audience and let's make it more new and newer looking. And they went overboard. They should have backed it off a couple notches.
So is there something as to maybe why you shouldn't rebrand?
Yes. There's more reasons not to rebrand, in my opinion, than there are to rebrand. To me, rebrand is like going and doing face surgery. You don't really know what you're going to get. And if you do it wrong, you could have a big mess. I had a couple of small businesses I worked with, and it was like every year they would rebrand. They would change their tagline. They would change the font on their logo. And I'm like, why are you doing this? So let me give you one of the most important lessons I learned in the first year I worked in television, way back in the 80s. Wonderful man. Roger Rhodes, our program director. I remember we were just a year into being on the air, and we were thinking about a logo change. We thought maybe we should change the logo. And he said to us, and I'll never forget this because I still say it today, by the time you're getting sick of something, your audience is just now starting to figure out what it is. I know so many businesses that the CEO will walk in being very reactionary and go in and say, you know what, we should change our logo. I just saw that such and such has a new logo and we should change our logo. No. Logos are something that should never be tampered with unless there's something we mentioned earlier. Something is really wrong. So do not change your logo unless there is a really big reason why you need to change your logo. If it's a bad logo, you probably do need to change it. But you still need to think through that your audience will still find it. The thing that Cracker Barrel missed completely is the number one reason you should not rebrand. Your core customers love you as you are. People think they'll stick with us no matter what. When you start messing with establishment, a heritage brand like Cracker Barrel, people get offended because that's my restaurant. That was where my grandfather took me, and you just changed the logo? So your core customers love you as you are. And again, they took it too far. The other thing is, a lot of people will blame the website logo that this is the reason we're losing customers. What will kill your brand isn't your logo. It's if you've just got bad service, bad customer service. If you've got a problem with your sales, maybe it's your salesman. Maybe it's your product. Maybe you are selling Kodak film in a digital era. It's not your brand, it's your operation.
John, if they had come to you, Cracker Barrel had come to you and could have saved themselves millions of dollars by asking you.
What they would have gotten is, you just need to serve more chicken and dumplings.
For sure. And if they had asked me, and I have zero experience in this, I would say, fix your servers and mop the floor.
So hindsight's always 20/20 with these situations. I'm sure the assignment was, we want to expand the Cracker Barrel audience so we can make more money and compete against Darden and Texas Roadhouse and everybody else. Having said that, the research now we know is, if you change the Cracker Barrel logo, if you paint the insides white, if you change the little chessboard game thingy, it will create a revolt. You will lose money. It will be a tragic mistake. So the research would have been, for me, I would have looked at what Bob Evans did. We mentioned Bob Evans earlier. To me, a very Cracker Barrel-ish kind of restaurant. They wanted to open more family-style foods. I don't know, it was about a decade ago, and they created a restaurant chain called Mimi's Cafe. It was more of a dinner place where Bob Evans had dinner, but it was mainly, I always looked at it as a breakfast place. And they eventually just sold it off to another line. But that's what I think Cracker Barrel should have considered doing. Keep Cracker Barrel the way it is. Keep it the same way in all the rural areas. If you want to update a little things, I would definitely still take Old Country Store off every sign you can, because that does not help. But I would have left everything essentially the same, get the booze out of the restaurants, and I would have created a new brand that was maybe more Chip and Joanna looking with the shiplap and the gray and all that, and created a whole entire brand owned by Cracker Barrel, but it's more for the cafe, sipping, coffee, drinking, younger crowd with the avocado and toast sandwiches that they like. And it would be a separate brand. And you can put that more in the urban areas. You can put that more in your downtown areas, a little bit sleeker, a little bit newer. But when you try to reach everyone, you end up reaching no one. My recommendation to Cracker Barrel would have been, start a separate restaurant chain that does the more modern, cooler, swifter stuff that the younger audience wants, because the younger audience is never going to come to Cracker Barrel. Let Cracker Barrel be Cracker Barrel. That's what I would have said. What would you have done, Angel? What would you have thought about all this?
Personally, I would like to know who they talked to, because in my opinion, John is as much of a fan of Cracker Barrel as he is. I am not as big of a fan, and my issues with Cracker Barrel are just that, are already what I've said. The service, the cleanliness, and the food at times. The food, for the most part, is okay. It's not stellar. It's not bad. It's okay.
Would the logo change? Have changed your opinion at all?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I don't give a ripstick about what the logo is on a restaurant I'm going to. I want to know, is it clean? Do they offer good service? I've eaten at some pretty substandard restaurants, but the service I got, the waitress I had, the cleanliness of the bathroom made the fact that the food was mid perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But when I come into a place, my shoes are sticking to the floor, the bathroom has been destroyed.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like they've bothered to put paper towels or toilet paper in it for God knows how long. And then the person who waits on me acts like they'd rather be on their phone in a parking lot or under a tree. I don't know. I don't want to eat there. And no logo is going to change that.
Yeah.
No branding, marketing campaign is going to change that. Train your people. Train your people to make them feel welcome. Train your people to respond to the customer, and make sure the quality of the food you're putting in front of somebody is to standard. After that, I don't care if your logo is a pink elephant that's shining brightly. That's not what brings me in. Now, again, that's me.
And this was part of the problem with the communication of this brand change. The CEOs kept saying, the food's staying the same. The atmosphere's staying the same with the sign. We're just lightening it up. We're changing the fixtures and stuff. At that point, I'm like, if everything's staying the same, why are we having you on? There's a reason you're on national television to explain why you're changing all this, and that's because you're trying to reach people who aren't coming to your restaurant, which means you're, again, trying to reach another audience and alienating the audience that is coming. But if they had just painted the inside of the restaurants, I think people would have walked in and go, oh, this is nice. They've changed the inside.
That's all. Yeah, give me a comfortable seat.
Yeah.
Make the inside clean.
I don't think it would have made a difference. But the fact that they made a big deal out of it. Oh, we're making these changes. Again, so many lessons to be learned on this. So tell me what you think. You can go to john@ondomedia.com. Got the links in the doodads right below us here. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this controversial topic, the most controversial thing that happened in 2025, which brings me to what we're going to talk about next week. AI.
I'm so over it.
Could AI take down social media? I don't mean from a virus perspective. I love social media. I'm on it all the time. I never thought in my life I would actually want to delete all my social media accounts, but AI and the AI generated content and seeing pictures of Bob Seger on his deathbed, which he's not on his deathbed, and all these things.
Or bunny rabbits bouncing on a trampoline, and then you find out that's really not real,
Yeah.
and you're so heartbroken.
Is this the potential end of social media as we know it, or what is next? So we're going to talk about that next week on episode 79. We're getting close to 80. You believe that? You think we should do 80? I don't know if we're going to go. We only said we were going to do 3 more episodes.
I don't know. You guys have to tell us if you're listening or
because
if you're not.
Angel will send you $5 if you call and say we don't want to hear the show anymore. Because she'll just say I got an hour back of my time every week.
I will just say, see, I told you. Nobody cares.
So do you care with me? Or are you with Angel and say, I don't, you guys can go pound sand, we don't care anymore. So you can find us at ondomedia.com. We're on all the podcast platforms. Say that really fast. It's hard. And we will be here with one more episode, and we'll see what happens after that. We're going to talk about AI next week on Marketing, Media, and Cupcakes. Until then, keep living the dream.
Connect with John and Angel via Facebook and Instagram, and let us know your thoughts. Marketing, Media, and Cupcakes is a production of Ondo Media.